Let's talk about Jeremie Frimpong. This story came out a few days ago from Sport Bild. To give you guys the background at home, reports in Spain suggest Barcelona and obviously Hansi Flick want to sign Bayer Leverkusen stars Jeremie Frimpong. However, the offer that they've apparently suggested is quite low. Sport Bild have reported that, and then they've gone on to say, and I'm just going to read this word for word, according to Sport Bild information. Oh, by the way, I say word for word, I've Google translated, so apologies if it's a bit of broken English at the time. In addition to Barca, Liverpool FC and Man United from the Premier League are also interested in the Dutchman, German record champions FC Bayern. I mean, German record, not the champions, are they? Just Bayer Leverkusen the champions. That's
Did he mean record champions, like in terms of how many times?
Yeah, I just feel like that was unnecessary. It feels like Sport Bild are big on Bayern Munich up there. Anyway,
that is literally what they do.
Yeah, that's their job. Yeah. Bayern Munich are said to have inquired too. However, talk did not make any progress. This interest in Frimpong is not unexpected. The fullback scored 9 goals and had 7 assists in the Bundesliga last season, together with his partner on the left, Alejandro Grimaldo. He was one of the best wing players in the world last season, and was one of the reasons for Leverkusen's successful season. So there we have it. The interesting thing with this one, Dan, I'll start with you, don't mind, is there was a release clause, but that expired today. So that was quite low as well. So if I needed like 40 million euros, if Liverpool wanted to get this done on the cheap, today was the day to do it. And obviously, unless something happened in the next 6 hours or something, then that isn't going to be the case. So what are your thoughts on the Frimpong stuff? Do you think it's legit? Can you see Liverpool being in and around that type of player or not?
There's obviously loads of reasons to be. You just named a lot of them there in the past minute or so, because, you know, the numbers speak for themselves. The season he had last year speaks for itself. He is a phenomenal footballer, very, very attack-minded for somebody who was nominally a right-back last season for Bayer Leverkusen. What was a very attack-minded Xabi Alonso's side, of course. His numbers are ridiculous. Like I say, he got more goals and assists than the ones you mentioned, because Europa League he was contributing throughout. Obviously, they won the German Cup as well, the DFB Pokal. So, genuinely incredible season, obviously away with the Dutch national team now. I think he plays an even more advanced role for them. So loads and loads of qualities, loads and loads of things to like. Yeah, you're right in terms of the release clause. If Liverpool were, desperate to get it over the line, they might have looked to do it on the opening day of the window, which of course was today. That isn't going to materialise clearly. I can't sort of overlook the position and whether Liverpool are willing to. And I guess also comes back to what we mentioned a moment ago with Lenny Yoro. If we see it as such an obvious signing to make, doesn't really matter where he plays, just get him through the door. Maybe, but I don't see Frimpong as quite being that. Obviously, he's older than Lenny Yoro for the kickoff. So, yeah, right back, stroke, right winger, maybe as a bit of a Mo Salah understudy stroke replacement long term, possibly. I don't quite see him as that myself. So with Trent Alexander-Arnold, and albeit we don't quite know where his future lies in terms of position, if we're looking to move into midfield, then Frimpong definitely becomes an option. Conor Bradley in his meteoric rise last season, he's got to be in this conversation as well. So because I see it as such a non-priority position, I struggle to sort of make peace with the fact that we could end up spending 60, 70 upwards million on that footballer. So I'm not quite sure.
The only counter argument would be, Chloe, is that Liverpool see him like the Dutch national team see him as a forward. He played for Holland the other day, and he played right hand side of a front three. Liverpool do. And again, we'll see what Arne Slot does, but or like Dan says, rather Arne Slot, and it's just thinks Trent in midfield. Now they're the two reasons how this makes sense, or it's actually a combination of both. Where if you get a lad in who is your Salah understudy / whatever you want to call it, added to the fact that if you need him to, he can play right back or right wing back as well, which is a bonus. That's the only way maybe you can get your head around if the interest is legit, as Sport Bild report.
Yeah, Jeremie Frimpong is a world-class footballer. Really like him. I love Grimaldo as well. They've been brilliant last season. However, when you could have got him for 40 mil today, spending 70 mil is a lot of money for a position for me that's not the most needed. It's not the top priority. I mean, Trent Alexander-Arnold, if we do decide to move him into midfield, it might not go the way we all want it to go. Like, he might just be better as a right back for the main reason of, and look, people can talk defensively and about his liabilities and all of that, but if he gets more time on the ball at right back than he does in midfield, he is more useful as a right back. And sadly, you're just going to have to figure out, maybe the balance of the team is a little bit different. Maybe the way we play with the two kind of like holding pivots maybe that helps Trent out, but he needs to play right back if that is the place where he gets the most time on the football. And you can't just go and spend 60, 70 mil on a player who you can't guarantee starts, because he's not better than Trent. He might be defensively, but he's certainly not at every other thing. And you're trampling on Conor Bradley's potential improvement and development, which is massive, by the way. Like, he was brilliant last season for us, and it was to a point where he was in and no one spoke about Trent. No. And when Trent comes back, you go, oh my word, like, how didn't we speak about him? But it was just because Conor Bradley, you'd had so much confidence in the lads. And on top of that, you've got to keep Joe Gomez happy if you want him around. And him, if Trent does move into midfield, it's got to mean that he's the backup and switches and alternates with Conor Bradley, because you can't, him at his young age and his body, you don't want to do what you did with Stefan Bajcetic and lob him in the deep end and make him get an injury like that. So for me, I love the player. I love Jeremie Frimpong. I don't think he's good enough to be an understudy to Mo Salah. That's just how I see it further up the pitch. I think he's a really good footballer, and what he's been doing in Xabi Alonso's system is brilliant. But as an out-and-out right winger, I'm not sure if he's got the trickery there. That, I mean, we say that Mo Salah, look, he's not the most technically brilliant footballer, but my word, he can turn defenders inside out. And for me, it's just a lot of money for a position that you're not 100% sure what you're going to do with first. And B, you don't know whether you actually do need someone like Jeremie Frimpong to play it. And right wing, I'd rather you go and get the likes of Bakayoko we spoke about last week. So,
yeah, it will come back down again. I'm just looking at the stats here in his career so far. 122 games as a right back, 96 as a right midfielder, according to Transfermarkt. So he has done a bit of both. Yeah. He's clearly adept at doing both. But like, even as a midfielder or a right winger, they class them as a little bit different, of course. Combined 102 games either as a right midfielder or a right winger, scoring 24 goals, getting 23 assists. It's not bad.
That's really good.
And at his age as well, he's quite young. It might just be that, you know, well, there's a lad here who he can get enough games because he can do a few jobs. We've seen the versatility. The value of versatility last season with someone like a Joe Gomez, someone like a Harvey Elliott. You're not always going to play right wing because Mo's here, at least for another year, and Mo's going to play all the time. Probably more in Europe as well this season, because he was quite happy to sit Europa League games out. Don't know if he's going to be happy to sit Champions League games out, and whether the new manager wants to pick him. I don't know. I'm just trying to square in my head. If Liverpool's interest is real, why is it real? And that's where I've landed to. The versatility, the age. And also, he's just really good at football.
His ability definitely comes into that conversation. Yeah, well, absolutely. I wonder how many of them games just sort of prior to his Leverkusen, I think he was at Celtic before, man, wasn't he? Came through
he was more right back at Celtic.
Was he's played a lot of right back there? Okay, so yeah, listen, ultimately, absolutely. And players change all the time, don't they? They find their natural position, they find where suits them best in different systems, different styles, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's not out of the realms of possibility whatsoever. My overriding feeling is that because it's so much money and Liverpool, we know we're not exactly the most lavish spenders in world football. We don't quite know what the kitty is this summer, of course, but I just see it as priority positions. If you were to get your centre-half boxed and maybe, I don't know, your number 6, if you want to have that conversation boxed, then possibly even your left winger, depending on what happens there, and then you've still got money left over, then yeah, of course, by all means, but other than that, I don't see how you walk into Michael Edwards' office, Julian Ward, Richard Hughes, and your first meeting, you sit down and go, right, what's the first marquee signing we're going to make this summer? I don't see how you fall up on Frimpong, albeit in terms of his quality and his class, his ability, etc., etc., etc. He 100% could play for Liverpool in any of these positions that we're talking about. I just think there's more important areas to address first.
I'm just looking on again, Transfermarkt. It isn't always exact in terms
it's the one though.
It's usually pretty good. Yeah. Like most of they class a lot of what he did last year at Leverkusen as like playing more as a right midfielder than a right back. So that's where those numbers are coming from. And he's done well there. He did a little bit of it for Celtic as well. Chloe.
He's quality.
And also the age. And they said, like, you know, the reporting build was at the €40 million, like 34 million quid release clause expired today.
I'd have been all over that.
If that was another month, 100%. Like that is the player.
Who knows these things? It might just be that's what it costs to get them out. We just don't know, do we?
Oh, if we were talking that sort of thing, we're not even having a conversation.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Yeah, and it's silly because it's not our money, but at the same time, we have to think like this as football fans because that's just how football works.
Especially when, you know, if the 42 that was supposed about Lenny Yoro. If Real Madrid ended up getting him, well, you've got 40 million to go and buy another superstar player, and Jeremie Frimpong is that. If you're talking 40 mil, in another month's time, like, there is no doubt that Liverpool should be in and around looking at that. It's the fact that the 40 mil ends today, which means surely Leverkusen are going to go, right, 65 to 70 everyone, because the further you get into the transfer window, the less time they have to go and replace him. And also, you'd imagine they've got Florian Wirtz, they've got Grimaldo, they've got Frimpong, there's a load of people. No, Garassi doesn't play for them anymore.
No, he's
Stuttgart. But they've got enough players there where there are a load of interest and should be a load of... Jonathan Tar's off, probably.
He's probably the one. Well, they're going to sell one, possibly two big players, because unfortunately for Bayer Leverkusen, as much as they were outstanding last season and obviously win the league, just missed out on what would have been the absolute perfect invincible season of all time, wouldn't it? But yeah, unfortunately, it's almost inevitable that he will get picked apart. It's already started, hasn't it, with Bayern Munich? But there is, just for Liverpool's perspective, there is obviously this new data-driven approach now. We don't quite know what that's going to look like. I suppose it is hard to have conversations in the round this. We've seen it in a previous incarnation with obviously Michael Edwards and Julian Ward, but it wouldn't shock me if what was a little bit outside the box, because there is precedent for this type of transfer, and that would be it, because we're all sitting here, I think all pretty much agree in the fact that it doesn't feel like the perfect fit in terms of position, but because of this is a new look Liverpool, you just never know.
We spoke before about Lenny Yoro maybe favouring Real Madrid in his thoughts about Liverpool. Can I interest you in an older quote from Jeremie Frimpong?
So, he played for City, did he not?
Yeah, as a kid.
As a kid, then with Celtic. Here's a quote from him. When asked by Dutch outlet Ziggo Sport about moving to Merseyside, had this earlier this year, by the way, this wasn't very recently.
I remember this.
Frimpong said, Liverpool, great club with history, that would be great. Who knows what the future will bring? So if you're playing, wants to play for Liverpool, if that's one of your tick lists, which it probably should be, at least there's something, Chloe, because Leverkusen had an unbelievable season. Obviously they did. They are going to lose a couple of players. That's just the fact. They can't pay the wages, unfortunately. And I know they've got Champions League money, and that's brilliant. And I wish this wasn't the case in footy sometimes, but it is what it is. And sometimes we benefit and sometimes we lose out from this. It just depends where you are on the food chain, for lack of a better phrase. My guess is if you're them, you're desperate to keep Florian Wirtz. That has to be priority number one. After that, Frimpong might be in this mix, but maybe a Grimaldo, maybe Boniface, whatever it is.
Boniface, that's the lad I was thinking of.
It could be any of them. Oh, sorry, I should have helped you out there before. My European knowledge is better than yours, but for a change.
Is Garassi's stats really good?
He's boss.
Yeah, that's why he popped up to me. I've been looking at his stats.
If they're thinking, if someone's got to go, that's the reason. Again,
what's his age? Sorry, like
23.
Yeah. It's if they're going to have to lose someone, I'm trying to phrase this of how Liverpool get him on a fee that we think is acceptable-ish. Yeah. Because the only thing that keeps nagging in the back of my head is now, if Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes really wanted Jeremie Frimpong, that release clause would have been met by now. And I know he's away at the Euros, and that definitely complicates things, but you think they'd have done it by now, unless someone thinks, well, actually, we know the fee's only this anyway, down the line, it's not that big a deal. But that's why I'm starting to think it probably would have happened already if it was going to happen. Is that fair enough? Yeah,
I think that's 100% correct. And obviously the Euros does affect it, because, you put 40 mil down on the table for Jeremie Frimpong, and then he gets an injury and he's not available for the first couple of months of the season. To Liverpool, that's a big thing. To any club, that's a big thing, by the way.
If you're Ronald Koeman, the last thing you want is one of your players negotiating a transfer 2 days before the Euro starts. Like,
it does happen though.
It can happen, but I think most international managers would ban it.
They prefer it not to, I could imagine. Yeah,
I know Luis Diaz did something similar anywhere he come out of
and it's only Germany, so Liverpool could easily get people.
No, I agree. I'm just thinking if I'm Ronald Koeman, I wouldn't let that happen. Like, and we've heard stories in the past of managers refusing to. Why am I going to let you do a medical now? You might get injured. So that's where.
And also, look, I don't have any affiliation affiliation to England. Sorry, I really don't. But Jeremie Frimpong will absolutely want to be one of the main lads at this Euros, and he actually probably will be focusing on that more than anything, because he's got Xabi Alonso, who's just took him to a Europa League final and won them the league last season and the Pokal. So there's no way that, you know, with Vincent Kompany coming in, you don't really know what to expect at Bayern. Yet they're going to take one of your best players in Jonathan Tah, because that's what happens in that league. But I reckon he wouldn't mind staying at Leverkusen as well. I think Ronaldo's a little bit older, if I'm correct. He's older than Frimpong, which makes Frimpong more of a saleable asset in my head, because you're paying for more years. Maybe not. Maybe someone else thinks differently.
As well, to be honest.
Yeah, he is. But Ronaldo's sick as well.
He is good, don't get me wrong with Frimpong's.
But it's good that at least he likes the club. He knows of us. And also, I've seen videos and interviews of him, and he just seems proper sound. Like, he just seems lovely. He can have a bit of banter with you. And he's got some, like, he knows his football, doesn't he, with his knowledge. So, yeah, I'd love to sign him if it was for 40 mil, but it doesn't seem like something that Liverpool need to attack straight away.
Let's
just quickly on that, sorry to say, if we're not aware of Liverpool's transfer kitty, we're not privy to that information. If it was like 300 million for this summer, like, that completely changes the goalpost and the landscape of this conversation again. I think we're all working on the premise that it'll be similar to what it has been more recently, like about 150 to 200, maybe add some player sales in amongst it as well. So we're all trying to think how Liverpool have been in the past few years, whereas if it was above and beyond that, because we're back in the Champions League, it's Taylor Swift money's kicking in and that sort of stuff. You never know, but that makes the Frimpong situation completely different.
More hats that are getting sold down.
And also, look, Gomez was apparently last week Bayern wanted Gomez, so if Gomez left, that might be important as well, because he is basically your backup right back with him and Conor Bradley, but he would become your backup right back, or, you know, with how good he plays. You'd interchange those two, and Trent plays in midfield. And if you lose, I mean, I saw there, I think Frimpong played a couple of games at left back on that as well. So if you do lose the likes of Joe Gomez to Bayern Munich, which I hope we don't, but if we did, you know, then Jeremie Frimpong comes a bit more like a transfer that you could see happen right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Keep an eye out again all over the socials and stuff. If anything does happen, we will talk about it here on the show.